I'll go tally the votes. I need you to bring me your torch. This is where we learn who is the ultimate survivor. I'll read the votes.
Survivor 45 has come to an end, and for the last time this season, Phil, Ollie, and myself have got something for you. I am so excited to talk about this finale because a couple of our predictions came true, which is exciting to talk about. We also have a brand new Survivor winner, so something tells me we could just kind of talk about it. If you're watching our video and you haven't watched the episode, be prepared for spoilers, but we have to congratulate Dee on winning Survivor 45. Ollie, how was your viewing experience?
I mean, I was sat there excited and ready, and obviously I was rooting for Dee all the way. And then when it got to final tribal council, I was like, she's got this, she's got this, she's got this. And then the votes were being read. I was a little scared. And then she pulled it off, and I was like, yes, we knew it. In my opinion, she did the best. So I can't complain, Phil.
This was an incredibly satisfying episode for any Survivor fan, I would have to guess. I mean, no matter who you were rooting for, even if you were rooting for Austin to win this game, the fact that it was so close at the very end, the truth is, I mean, I believe that this might be the closest sort of final that we've had in the new era, certainly, in a long, long time.
Fun fact, it's the only one in the new era that hasn't finished with a 7-1-0 vote.
There we go. There we go.
I think that goes to show that the new era version of Survivor, the small changes are paying off. I think it's a couple of seasons to really sort of find its footing in terms of what they were really trying to do here. But Survivor 45, I think, proves that they're headed in a very good direction moving forward. And we can talk about the things that we really loved about Survivor 45, and then the things that we think that they might want to consider changing as they film Survivor 47 and beyond. But I think I narrowed down this episode to 6 very key moments that we can sort of build off of and talk about. And the first one is Jake squandering that immunity challenge advantage.
That was rough. That was rough. And I think what made it really rough is that you literally saw his raw emotion lead to, I mean, his frustration drove him to break that challenge. Like that was hard to watch.
You're thinking of the next challenge. I mean, you're right. That was an incredibly hard to watch. But you remember he found that advantage.
Okay, and and let's actually contextualize it with my mistake here. We have watched Jake make so many like little sort of Charlie Brown errors that it's hard to even really, figure out what people are talking about all the time. Yes, the first challenge where he won an advantage in the game and he genuinely did squander it by leaving a key behind, by having a piece not in his sort of, collection of pieces in the puzzle at the very end. That was really hard to watch. And once again, as you sort of heard me tease here, the unfortunate moments did not stop. So I think the collection of them makes that one even worse.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just the start when it came to the finale, the start of the little fumbles. And bless Jake, he hasn't had a good run. But I mean, it sounds really bad to say, but when I see that, it's what I come to expect from Jake's kind of game and stuff. There's always just something that goes awry with him. And I guess all I can say is in that moment, it was clearly just, he was like, I have to do this and then get up there completely just thinking. And I think it's those little things that we've seen with Jake that he just keeps forgetting. He just keeps forgetting the simple little things. And then that's what screws him over, bless him.
It was a sad thing to watch during this finale. And I have to admit, this might sound harsh. I almost felt like a little bit of secondhand embarrassment. And that's more on me than it really is on Jake. I think watching Jake sort of navigate these things, be confronted by his mistakes right there in the moment by Jeff, who was relentless. Like, I think Jake moved on nicely, like just putting the past behind and keep moving forward. That mentality was great to see. But it was so frustrating as a viewer to watch. Jake was obsessed with trying to make a big spectacle of a move. And here was the game giving him so many chances to do something like that. And each time it seemed to fall flat. And it's so interesting because this theme has been playing out for the majority of the season. And we've always been speculating, the three of us, what is this edit that Jake has been getting? Ollie.
I think watching this finale, I think I've not cracked it, but I think I've realized the pattern.
Let's hear it.
So, because obviously, I assume, can I discuss kind of the final 5 pre-tribal?
Yes, please.
Fabulous. So obviously, we saw that Austin won the immunity. Well done, Austin, final 5. And he obviously takes Jake to the sanctuary where good things happen. And I think this is where I really saw where Jake seemed to make his mistakes, because he straight away told Austin about his idol, which in that of itself is its whole thing. It's when he relays his plan to Austin. I figured out, or I've realized and kind of connected a couple of dots, that Jake kept giving everyone else leverage, even if it was unintentional. And he kept kind of being like, this is the plan that I really want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And what he does is, I think he just tells the wrong person, who then uses that to gain their leverage, because then they've always been able to then counteract his plans. And obviously we saw Austin kind of do that this episode. And that's what I've kind of seen the pattern with him. So I think it is just, he's unintentionally allowed others to have the leverage from his own accord, if that makes sense. Do you get that?
It makes total sense. I mean, we see that happen so many times. The frustrating thing about him giving the information to Austin that he had the idol was that it didn't seem like he had like a reason for doing so to begin with. If I had seen a confessional from Jake saying, I told Austin because I wanted that information to get back to D, and there was something in the works there, I could have been like, oh, cool. But that wasn't the case. So it made me just really confused as to why, like, what was the point of sharing that information? And then it comes down to my second moment that I want to talk about, and it sort of plays into it, but Keturah deciding to change her vote at the last minute at that tribal council. And I think it plays a lot into the relationship with Jake. I don't think it is. I mean, Phil, what did you think of this moment? Because Keturah and Jake, they've been toying with the idea of working together several times this season, but it always seems to fall flat. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it sort of goes down to the core of trust, right? When you really trust somebody, when they tell you something, you know that you can rely on that fact as fact, or rather that statement as fact. You know that someone's not going to betray you when you have these sort of like undying, like alliance members, like Dee and Austin. They were always having each other's back, and that was, they could always trust in each other when they were telling each other something, anything for that matter. With Keturah and Jake, they had what I would call, like, it's tough. They've been with each other since the beginning of the game. So they definitely had some elements of trust within each other, but I don't think that it was as locked in as either of them even realized. And, I think Jake is looking at her being like, oh, we have this on lock because me and Keturah, we've been here since the beginning of the game. I let her in on the fact that I have an idol. So, like, how could this go wrong? But in Keturah's eyes, she did not want to be the fool here, and really it would be, the fool for the second time, where she had that instance earlier on in the game where Jake and Caleb revealed to her that, hey, we knew that Bruce found the idol and we didn't tell you, and everyone actually knew except for you. And I think that she's already had a moment where she's very uncomfortable with the lack of knowledge that she had in the game. And I think that she sort of looked at this as a possibility of being a sort of repeat situation. And so she goes, why am I, and in this case, it would be her literally leaving the game. So she didn't want to be in that position, and she made the decision that she needed to have preservation for herself.
Yeah, I think as well the fact that she could kind of she already had knowledge of things Jake had done and his kind of not reputation but statistics, and I think because as we saw at Tribal, everyone got at least one vote because there was that uneasiness. Like, what were we gonna like that? Like, I feel like that uneasiness. She was just like, no, I can't count on this. I need to know that this is happening. I know for a fact that a vote is at least going on Julie. I'm just going to do the safer option. And I think again, it was to Jake's deficit. Had he let Katora know, like, this is my plan? Because again, it's this thing of it's then this funny opposite flip thing where Jake has this really big plan and Jake wants to make this flashy move. But in order for it to work, he needs to ensure that Katora is on board, and not letting Katora know the full picture really did not play in his favor.
I also don't think it helped that his initial idea of a big flashy move was voting Julie out. And I don't know, because remember, Katura put in a lot of work to get him to a place. I love how she explained this in the episode too, by the way, how she was able to sort of bring Jake more into the idea of blindsiding D at this point instead of Julie. I thought Katura did a fantastic job at this portion. And I think had the plan gone in that direction, I think Katura would have had a very legitimate argument to win the game. That would have been, I think that would have been a game-winning move had that played out as they had imagined it before going to tribal council. I think because she sort of had to talk Jake into the fact that voting out D at this point was going to be the better option than voting out Julie, I could see where there was a concern in Katura's mind. So I'm still, I have to admit, I'm still kind of going back and forth here about, does it really make sense how this all played out? Sometimes with Katura, when we get down to final five, I'm like, is now the time to play with the idea of trying to make a safe move? Or is now the time to really try to make that big move? Because I don't know what the consideration was in terms of staying in the game after Julie had been voted out, because we see right after it happens, Katura says that she's kicking herself for this decision. So it makes me wonder, okay, yes, you're still guaranteed that you're in the game, but it makes me wonder what your path forward is from here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think especially because the truth is the way that we've been talking about Austin is clearly not the honest truth of how people felt about him on the island. I think a lot of people completely counted Austin out, and the fact that he got so close to beating D, who everyone thought was the odds-on favorite to be almost uncontested, I would imagine. Most people thought that it was going to be another 7-1-0, where the 1 was Drew, 7 on D, and it was going to be an absolute landslide, and that's not what happened. And so I think back and I go, man, even if Katura did vote D out here and Julie stayed, and perhaps in the next one, Julie got voted off, like Austin, I would imagine Austin would probably still win. They're still the same players that voted for him. They were the same ones that have always been on the jury. Like it's really tough to like pontificate on what could have happened here, considering the fact that I think that we as the fandom in a way had Austin's winning potential wrong, because I don't think that we were the only podcast that was saying that. I think that we heard that quite a bit, that people were like, oh, we're fully out on Austin. Austin almost won this game. So, even if she did end up getting that to D, I don't know what would have happened there. Katura could have won, but it might have been just too late for the both of them.
That's a good point, Phil. I do wonder at that point, Austin would have been blindsided twice. And then also, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I do think that Kendra and Katura had a really strong relationship, and Katura didn't have a hand in getting Kendra voted out. So I think that actually might have been beneficial, but you're right. And I can't wait to talk about that final tribal council because Austin came in swinging and so did Dee. And it was thrilling. That's one of my later moments that I can't wait to talk about. It was thrilling watching them not back down and pitch their games as they played them, both of them going for that $1 million prize. So that was amazing to see. I mean, Ollie, let's talk a little bit more about this section that we're currently on. What are your thoughts?
So you're gonna have to be. What's your huh?
Yeah, no, I know that was not.
That was great.
Well set up.
No, so kind of going into the final immunity, I was kind of. I did understand when I was watching it. My initial thing was I understand why Katora did what she did when she explained it. And I was a little bit surprised when kind of Jake just, because obviously we get back to camp and they're just like on one another. And I was like, Jake is like not holding back, which I didn't think was kind of good for him socially. But again, I feel like this is where we kind of saw Jake just succumbing to his game frustrations. I feel like this was the start of it. But yeah, kind of going into that final four, to me, it kind of did seem like right now it is kind of Dee and Austin, and then Katora and Jake are there, but there's still fractures. So kind of you had these two here that were still in a very good spot going into that final immunity.
And let's talk about that final immunity challenge because I think I realized, I mean, this was really hard to watch. This is when, and I'm talking about Jake here. This is, I didn't like seeing this. Like this was I didn't like that he broke his part of the challenge. Like, I don't know what was going through his mind. Obviously, I get it. There was frustration there, but the fact that you kept stepping on it and then like risking it, like that's where I was like, why?
And honestly, the truth is, I actually commend Jeff in this moment here. I know. I mean, look, Jeff sticks up for his crew. Production spent a lot of time making this. I don't even know if we've ever seen something like this happen in the past. Certainly not exactly like this. I know that we've seen, we've seen elements of people sort of just giving up or, out of frustration, sort of just, catching a bit of an attitude. And Jeff gets very angry at that, actually. Yeah. And I think that Jeff really held his cool here. And he was like, look, I understand that you are frustrated, but you're out of the game. You're done. And it was, it was very uncomfortable to watch. Yeah. It's I mean, like, no true shade. I love Jake. I was rooting for him the whole time, but it's like a kid who, you tell they can't have something and then they throw a little hissy fit. They're walking around, they're stomping around. And, it was not a good look, to be honest.
No. And this is probably going to sound harsher than it's meant to come across. I didn't feel bad.
Yeah,
like I had no sympathy, and that isn't to completely bash Jake. It was in that moment, like we heard Jeff saying when he was doing that, like, be careful if you break the challenge, you're out. And we know Jeff. Jeff makes sure that everyone can hear him. Mm-hmm. So when Jake was doing that, and then he was like, "Oh, well, I was just trying to go quickly," and it's like, well, I kind of sat there and I was like, you were letting, like, again, like I said. He was letting his frustration dictate his actions. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of sat there and I was like, yes, I feel empathy for you, but I can't feel sympathy for you in this moment. And I feel like that's where I was kind of at with that moment.
I mean, truly, we were lucky that this was not one of those challenges where like him sort of big stepping and having his little episode could have affected the other players, Thank God that these, ropes were not connected to, other people's lines and stuff, because that totally could have been the case where that happens all the time where, Jeff will warn them, hey, when you're stepping down, be gracious because it'll affect the people around you for certain challenges. And this was luckily not one of them. But like it could have totally affected Dee, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think Jeff made the right decision being like, I mean, what other decision was there? I don't think he really left him much of a choice.
There was no choice. He
Yeah.
broke the challenge.
Exactly.
And yeah, it felt to me disrespectful a little bit. And I also, Phil, I love that you gave Jeff his flowers. I think there were many moments, especially like looking back at that first immunity challenge of the episode when Jake forgot to bring the key up. And then when Jake was missing that final puzzle piece, I feel like in his own way, Jeff was sort of past the challenge after Austin had already won it. Jeff was sort of like giving Jake a little bit of a hint of like, you're missing the small details.
Yeah.
It's amazing like how many things like these incidents that we're talking about now happened this episode. And I know we said I don't feel bad that Jake did not win that challenge either. What I do feel bad about kind of is that this was his last episode. You know what I mean? Like this until the future where he might play again. This was Jake's final moments on Survivor. And it was kind of hard to watch. Now, what I do want to say is I've been online. I've been seeing all of your reactions to the Survivor 45. I love how much love everyone's giving to these castaways. And I just want to appreciate that because I too love this cast. And yes, we can have our moments where we're feeling disappointed in the game moves or how people took things. But I do like that there's a lot of love being spread around online. And let's keep that up.
Yeah. Also, can I just say, I liked the variation of this challenge. I just wanted to mention that. I liked that they added the high step. Because I remember the last time we'd seen this challenge, it wasn't a high step. And I was glad that it wasn't the simulation. Because that's been the one. Yeah, that one. It's been that for ages. And I was like, I was wanting a refresh. So having that, I was very happy with.
Yeah, no, I will say this was like a very fun and engaging challenge. And you know, on this podcast, I think that we mostly follow story and strategy, but this challenge was really, really fun. And for what it's worth, in both challenges, both immunity challenges, we saw how the results and even the inner workings of the game were actually sort of, you know, compounded with the story as a whole, which was nice to see because we don't see it all the time. Sometimes the challenge is simply the challenge. And in this case, you know, I think that aspects of the challenge really floated into Jake's story. It floated into, you know, the ultimate result, seeing Dee be able to walk in there with her final immunity win, make the final decisions. So really, really fun. Really fun.
You're so right. I love that marriage of strategy, challenge, storytelling.
Yes.
So for that, like that's what kept this episode so thrilling for me. Again, it kind of went back to there was a very high chance that the ending of Dee winning wouldn't have happened had certain things not happen. And it was so thrilling to sort of know that there was the potential for the ending to completely change. And then seeing how it all played out. And I really applaud that part of the episode, but we have to give our flowers to Dee as well. Third individual immunity challenge win of the season, the most individual immunity challenge wins of Survivor 45. I was so happy.
I mean, she did a great job. She worked for it. She earned it. And, you know, we'll get into Dee's story a bit, but I really think that, you know, this did not happen by accident. She really worked for this entire season win. So, you know, kudos to Dee.
I have to ask, at what point of the episode did you two, I'm going to say no, that Dee was going to win? Because for me, it was right after Julie was voted out.
My story is kind of sad. I mean, I told Matthew this. I was on the plane for the live episode. So I was flying. As you see, my background has been so different lately. I was, you know, at my apartment in LA. I traveled to see my mother. I'm at my dad's now, and I unfortunately was a little bit spoiled. So I went on social media and I saw just a video of Emily voting Dee. And I was like, why would they be posting this if Dee did not win? What's going on? So I was a little spoiled. So I will say that. So Ollie, You have the floor.
Oh, I made sure, being a Brit, I was like, it's every Thursday. I'm like, no social media for the morning until I watch the episode. No social media. It was when she won that final immunity. I was like, do you know what? No matter what, I think she's got this. So yeah, it was kind of the final immunity. I was like, she's got this. There was moments during Final Tribal Council where I got a little bit worried, but then I was like, no, she can't not win at this point.
Yeah.
I was just when I compare, I was like, she has had such, like, she just played such a masterful game and had a lot of control. I was like, as soon as she won Final Four, I was like, she's won. It was just my mind.
I think we're aligned there. And this was also a very interesting choice that they decided to do, because I think as viewers, I mean, can I ask our viewers, whether you're in our live chat right now or you are seeing this after the fact, whether on Spotify or on YouTube, let's just leave us a comment here. At this point in the episode, once Dee has won the Final Four immunity challenge, did you really think that at any point she was going to not take Austin to Final Three?
I mean,
That's
for
a great
me,
question. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
no, I was just going to say, for me, when I saw that, I was like, she's going to take Austin and it's going to be Couture and Jake. And there's a reason I thought that anyway, because this is one prediction I got right. Because it was the final 7. It was the scene when Emily was coming back from the challenge, or from the journey. Yeah. And what did we see in the scene? Both Jake and Couture practicing fire.
You did.
Nicely done, Ollie.
I will say, I thought that was a red herring. I was like, there's no way these two are actually in fire. Like, this has got to be a little conspiracy. They're trying to throw it out to us, make us think. You had that right, Ollie. You definitely had that right. My big thing was, I was like, is Dee going to do the thing that people in this day and age feel like they need to do in throwing themselves in fire, despite the fact that they've played a great game? And I was so nervous that she was going to throw herself in fire and try to prove herself one more time and find herself on the wrong side of it. I don't know. I was very, very nervous about that, but I'm happy that she didn't. So
that's so funny. That never occurred to me. There was not a thought in my mind that Dee would do that, because again, I don't think she needed to. But you're right. I think when you're a player and you might be lacking that awareness of the game, which Dee very much had a lot of awareness about her game, I could see how players may feel like, no, I have to put myself in there.
Well, I think that's because, and this is actually one thing that I don't like about the new era, that some previous seasons, some specific castaways have made the point of the fire making challenge almost a winning moment opposed to a game moment. And we did see that in 43, and it really irked me in 43, because I remember that the only reason that 43 obviously Gabler won was because of the fact he did it and Cassie didn't put herself in. And I was like, you've gone through the whole entire game and you've just based it on this one move. So I was kind of proud of Dee for not choosing fire. Yes.
I would like to ask a question. Just a little poll to the room. Do we think, because I think that she was very, very adamant about not allowing Austin to go into fire.
Love that.
Do we think that if Austin did go into fire, beat Couture or beat Jake, would that have edged it out or no? To your point, Ollie, this has been such a big deal. Please.
I think in this instance, it possibly could have, because again, Dee very eloquently spoke about the other three players, their games. And also, I think that's a very good thing on Dee. She was able to just so correctly pinpoint each of their games. And I think Austin already had a couple of good moments. He already had a decent resume in terms of loyalty and social and physicality, and he did have some strategic moments. So I think she was right in the sense of she knew that when it came to resume moves, Austin was above Jake, what, no doubt. So she knew that just giving Jake this moment just gave him something anyway, and it just made Jake feel better. Whereas with Austin, it was strategy. She was like, if I let him have this move, it could hurt me. So I don't even want to take that away. Mm-hmm. So I do think it could have possibly edged, but again, we don't know the jury's whole take.
I don't think it would have. Well, Phil, you pose a very interesting question. Seeing how close it was at the end there makes me really happy that Dee had that knowledge to know. And I think it kind of proved it also in that final tribal council. Her and Austin could pitch their stories in a very similar way. So now Dee was thinking, how am I going to have the leg up? And by putting Austin in a situation that is going to be fresh in the jury's minds, if he makes it past that final fire-making challenge, it could be that one last moment that flips it for the jury. But can I just say, to your point, okay, fire making is something that I think that everyone should practice before going on to Survivor. So I don't know how much merit, if I was on the show, I'm not sure how much merit I would personally give someone who was able to make fire. Like, I don't know how much weight it really carries. And I know that they tried to frame it as like this big thing. I think for Heidi, it was a big deal because it was a record-breaking fire making challenge. But unless it's that again, I don't really see how that action alone, unless the person has also played an amazing game, I don't see how that action alone would sway my vote. But I could see why other people might see that as like the most amazing thing. But this really just circles back to, I'm glad that Dee recognized that her and Austin's game could be seen as very similar by the jury, didn't want to give him that one additional bump.
Yeah. And smart on her.
Yeah. It's a credit to her social prowess. And I think she even spoke about that at Tribal. She kind of laid out the reasons why she was doing it. And I think being that open and honest also kind of showed the jury how kind of in tune she was, not with just her game, but other people's game. And I think that's a very good skill that I think a lot of kind of just, even like people like us that really do watch the show, it's something that we kind of always just sometimes we'll forget. And then we'll listen, like I'll listen back, and if I'm rewatching a season, I'm like, that person was able to not just figure out their game, but figure out other people's games and then one up them. I was like, that's why they like won or did better than another person.
And I also think that Dee, to the point of allowing Jake to permitting his requests to be put into that fire making challenge, I also think that shows awareness of Jake's game and knowing it was a great example of how empathy can be used in the game of Survivor, I felt, because she was able to recognize that Jake really wanted something, did not feel threatened by his game to consider, ooh, this might be some sort of a trap. Like, what if he comes back and, starts overthinking putting Jake in there at his own request? Because that too could be, like we were saying before, Jake could go to the final tribal council and be like, I volunteered to go into the fire making challenge and I knew I could do it. But whatever. So I like that Dee had that knowledge of let me give Jake this moment, and I think it really worked out in the end.
And I think the truth is, I mean, look, this is the way that I sort of see her decision here. Regardless of what would have happened there, she yielded herself an additional vote from the jury. And I think her being like, Katurah, a lot of people did not see your moves. I saw them. I think that you were a kick-ass player, which is why I'm putting you in, is a compliment to her. Yeah. Jake requesting, hey, I want to go in there. And so if she lost, she could have been confident that, hey, Katurah will likely still vote for me, For Jake, he was begging, please put me in the fire. I want one additional way to sort of give myself an edge here. she was not nervous of him getting that and going to the final tribal, and good on her for understanding that. But had he lost, I think that he would have sat on the jury and still been like, D, you gave me that last sort of opportunity to up my game, even though I squandered it. I'm thankful that you gave me the opportunity. Here's my vote. I think that he would have voted for her too. In Austin, the only person that she did not sort of afford that to, this is just the truth, is that I think that Austin, if he ended up on the jury any way, shape, or form, he was going to vote for Dave. So I think that she knew that, hey, it is your job, in my opinion. It is your job. If you win that necklace, more than, hey, how do I ensure that I'm in the end, which is obviously the most important, but you have it around your neck, you're officially in the end. How do you get yourself that one last vote? The last person going to jury, like, how do you make them feel happy? And she did that.
Yeah.
And I think we should talk all about that final tribal council. Unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to Katura, who did not win the fire making challenge and was the last person to be eliminated from the game up until this point. I really enjoyed seeing Katura on the season as well. But we have a final three, and we're going to talk about their pitches to that jury right after what Phil says. You're cueing me to go to commercial. Okay, we're gonna go to commercial.
I was just being happy about us sort of moving forward. I was hyped. I don't know.
Well, then let's do it.
My name is Jonah Fielko, and I'm the CEO of Bracketology.tv, fantasy sports for reality television. We offer fantasy games for shows like The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, RuPaul's Drag Race, and counting. You start by creating a community. Within your community, you can create a fantasy league for each show that you want to play fantasy games for. Within the league, you can choose up to 3 of our 4 game types, and our most popular is the Advanced League. Choose a team of contestants, and depending on what they do and say during the episode, that's how your team will gain or lose points each week. We also have elimination-style games like our Confidence Pool. This is where you choose how confident you are that each contestant will survive elimination that week. And we've also got March Madness-style brackets. Come back a couple hours after the episode to check your scores and watch you climb the leaderboard. Bracketology is free to play, so grab your friends, your family, your coworkers, and head to bracketology.tv for more info.
We had a Survivor Now podcast, Bracketology Fantasy League, for viewers of our podcast and also for those of us who work on the podcast. I'm not sure if the winners have been announced yet, but the last I saw, there was like a podium finish that looked like it was about to happen. So congratulations to whoever got those first, second, and third placements in the Bracketology Fantasy League. Ollie, did you?
No, I did get. I've literally just checked mine. To be fair, I did come 20th, so I'm not mad at that.
Top 20.
I cracked the top 20, and technically, when I look at this one, I got more points than what anyone else got on the draft that we did, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but you know who picked the winner on the Survivor Now podcast draft?
True.
Go to our Instagram page at Survivor Now podcast to see the results of that. I'm still so confused by how that worked. I thought I was going to win just by having D on my team, but I guess not. But it's okay.
You win in our hearts. You win in our hearts.
That's right, Matthew. That's right.
There was no catching up to Abraham. So go check out our Instagram post at Survivor Now Podcast. And of course, you can also follow myself, Phil, and Ollie at our handles down below too. Okay, final tribal council. We've made it. This is the moment. Jake, Austin, D have been practicing their pitches. And this leads to my next favorite moment of the episode, which was the showdown between D and Austin for the win. I have to admit,
hey, Jake was there too. All right, Jake was in the room.
Okay,
Jake was present and accounted for.
Yes,
he was fighting. He was fighting for it.
Yes, of course, he was fighting. But the thing that I really enjoyed seeing out of this segment was the discussions between D and Austin. That's all I'm saying there. Yeah. Phil, would you like to start us out with something with a question that Jake got?
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't remember the exact order of all the questions, but I recall that, there were some questions where they only sort of geared it towards Austin or D.
Right.
In the beginning, they opened it up to everybody. And I know one of the sort of big questions was, hey, like, congratulations, you got here. Like, what is a move that helped you get here? I believe that was one that might not have been asked to Jake, but they were all fighting.
Well,
They're all
okay.
fighting out there.
To this point, yes. And I don't mean to say it as a Jake didn't have a chance at this point. It just genuinely what ended up happening in the episode was it seemed like the jury was really either between Austin or D taking the win at the end. And yes, Jake got some questions. He got some opportunities to shine. We saw Drew tell Jake, give yourself some more credit. And that was fun because they had a little bit of a frenemy situation during their time on in the game together. This version of tribal council, it feels less balanced to me than in like previous tribal councils that I've seen. But I don't think that's a bad thing because whatever helps the jury make their decision, then great. If one person gets less questions because at this point in the game, the jury feels like they have the understanding of how this person played and they'd rather reward one of the other two players in that final three, all for it. Plus, I think that there are opportunities, as we saw between D and Austin more so, there are opportunities in that final three tribal council to maybe someone got a question, but you're allowed to input your answers and sort of make it your own, even if the question wasn't fully addressed to you. And that is what I really like seeing between Austin and D.
Yeah. Can I ask Matthew and Ali, I would like to know, what do you think about this sort of tribal format overall, which has been going on for a bit? Back in the day, they used to have the jury come up one at a time and specifically ask the questions that they wanted to ask. And even then, they would gear some of them to one person, some of them to all three, but they went up one at a time and sort of got to, speak on what mattered to them. Do you like this sort of group tribal where everyone sort of goes at once, or do you prefer when everyone goes up one at a time? Because something that I did notice, Bruce did not ask a question.
Well, maybe the episode. That's what I'm still confused about is, does everyone, to your point, does everyone get a chance to ask a question? And then depending on edits, do they have to cut things out?
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah. But that's sort of my thing is that I think back in the day when they went up one at a time, it really made it clear where it's like, this is what matters to this person. They're guaranteed to get their question, honestly, even like aired. Do you have an opinion on which sort of tribal format you like better?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I feel like I have just recently watched Fans versus Favorites again. Because I'm currently making my partner watch the seasons, so I get the joy of rewatching. So I had the joyous Natalie Bolton question come back to my life, which was amazing. I think it's because of that I do enjoy the pre-thing of one person coming up, or just even if they're in that thing where they're all sat down, they have the chance just to ask a question. I feel like it's because we then get to hear everyone's points. But to be fair, I feel like this final tribal, I feel like the jury were a lot more jovial, and I feel like there was so much more respect that we've seen in other ones. I feel like everyone except for Bruce did have a chance to speak at least once and have a question. So I think that's why I was kind of all right with this specific season's jury, because I was like, well, I did kind of hear from everyone. Unfortunately, not Bruce. But yeah.
I like the idea of past seasons where everyone would stand up and say their piece. I think that if you made it to the jury, I believe that you sort of have a right to have a moment at that final tribal council to say what you need to say or ask questions. At times, I don't think we have found the perfect final tribal council format, because at times I think that it spews into kind of like hateful territory in a sense from things that we've seen in the past at Final Tribal Council. And it's not a fun watch for viewers, right? Like I get it in the context of the game, but then like seeing it after it's filmed and seeing some of the players' reactions. And again, these are like previous seasons. Like I'm thinking about seasons that are pre Winners at War. It's not a good feeling as a viewer to watch these unfold. So I do like the tone of these tribal councils more. That being said, like, do you remember when they were doing that? We're going to take it category by category, outwit, outplay, outlast. I like the idea of that, but I didn't think that it held up in terms of like, no, because people would just ask follow-up questions that had nothing to do with whatever category they were on at that moment. So Phil, I don't think we found a perfect Final Tribal Council format at this point that is the perfect marriage of hearing from everyone on the jury and also giving the players their best chance, the remaining players, their best chance to pitch their case in a very equal way.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, look, I enjoyed this Final Tribal quite a bit. I was really, really happy with sort of how everything worked out. But I agree, Ollie. I catch myself going back to seasons like Cagayan where, Spencer gets up there and makes like a full blown, honestly, like to your point, I guess, Matthew, as well, like a not very nice speech towards Wu. He called him Tony's dog. And I think about this sort of tribal, you're right, it's altogether more jovial, but it's like, what if everyone sort of got their time, in the light to sort of talk about what mattered to them? But I just wanted to sort of see, before we got into this sort of conversation, just the framework of it. Did we like it? Did we like that we went back to the well of, hey, everyone sort of go at it when you have your moment, jump in. I do love to get us started here. I love starting with Kendra. I thought that we might start with Caleb as the mayor of Ponderosa, but I think Kendra did a kick-butt job of getting us started here. And she's just the perfect person to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I feel like the reason we had kind of such, not a light-hearted tribal, because I feel like everyone was still able to kind of have the game head on. But I feel like we had her, and we always knew she was going to her precedent when it came to Final Tribal was she was always going to come with some sort of positivity and bring like just a nicer energy. And I felt like that's where the momentum then began. And I think that's why I liked that we started with Kendra, because she kind of set the tone and she kind of set yes, we are here to grill you, but we're going to do it in a way that doesn't diminish you as a person. Because again, I feel like Jeff said it, this was the season of kind of friendships and connections, and that was sort of the theme. So I can understand why it was a bit more jovial.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kendra was such a great choice. It really set the tone. I also loved, like, to the point of we're not going to let things slide, like seeing Emily be able to provide alternate perspectives while still remaining respectful of the games and of I liked how that came across. One of my favorite examples of this was when, remember how last episode we were talking about the fact, oh, how cool, Austin should not have played his idol for himself. Austin should have brought his idol all the way to the end and boasted about not playing it. And Austin was trying to play that up of, I didn't even need to play my idol. And here was Emily who chimes in saying, well, actually, you lost your number one alliance member because you didn't play the idol on him. So I don't know about that.
Yeah, I love first of all, I just love a well actually person, which is why I think I really always find Emily, because Emily is a quintessential well actually person. And she did it right there. Yeah, she's like, well, actually, you could have saved your number one ally in the game and you didn't. So should that really be a bragging point? And like, that's what Final Tribal's about, is like, there are always different perspectives on a move and what it means. And for Austin, it's going, hey, I never needed to use this on me. I never got a vote. Like, how cool is that? And to Emily, she goes, okay, but there's still a missed opportunity there. You talk about how bad it was that you lost Drew. That's on you in a way, So kudos to her for that. But it was totally Emily. It's what I almost expected from Emily, And can
I just add also to that point? I liked how Austin also handled that as well. Emily threw that in there, saying, well, you did lose your number one alliance member. But I liked how Austin twisted that part too and said, well, it actually kind of worked out to my benefit because if Drew was sitting here with me at Final 3, I think that it would be very neck and neck. And I think I would have less of a chance of winning. And I like that that was the approach that he chose to go about after Emily sort of provided that viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this final tribal council anyway, we were able to see a lot of people, well, especially kind of Austin and especially Dee. I think this is where Dee really excelled. That there were so many counterpoints. And it was kind of like kind of Phil said, well, actually. And I saw Dee do this a lot, but she did it in such a good way that it wasn't malicious. It wasn't like harsh. It was, well, actually, let me counteract it with this point that actually disproves your point. And I know she did it with an Emily question, which I really thought she did well on. And I remember
the brain versus heart question.
Yes. Yes, that one. I thought that was really good of her. And it was also because we saw her when it was kind of her and Austin like talking and things. And we did have that little, Austin said one thing, Dee then counteracted. Austin counteracted, then Dee, and I did like that.
Love it.
The one I do want to point out was when she did it to Jake, because Jake actually stated that he felt like both Austin and Dee played a very safe game, and we saw Dee's eyes, and I was like, she's ready for him. So when she then was like, actually, can I say, and gave all her points, I was like, yes, that is exactly what you need to do, because I could see that Jake was kind of trying to be like, look, I didn't play a safe game. I couldn't. And then Dee kind of counteracted, go, no, I didn't play a safe game. I just played a smart game. And that's what I kind of enjoyed with her.
And I will also say that I found it very refreshing that Dee acknowledged that a part of her game was luck. Yeah. And I think I saw some different opinions on this online. Some people were saying, like, why would you admit to that? But I think as a juror, I would love to see someone recognize that luck did impact their game to an extent, right? Like,
well, the truth is, luck will always, and I'm talking every single Survivor winner since season 1, luck has helped them out in the game, and that's part of it. And that's how the game is designed. Is that a certain part of it is that, hey, everything from your starting tribe, where you swap to, the twists and turns of the game, these are all sort of things that you could fall on the right side of and the wrong side of. And I agree with you, Matthew. Her being the one to bring it up and saying, hey, well, look, I also got very lucky at certain points in this game. Like, kudos to her. It also made me sort of, that would have won me over too. It'd have been like, hey, especially as someone who has lost the game, you're on the other side. Like, in a weird way, it's also a compliment to every single person on that jury being like, hey, the stroke of luck missed you, hit me, it helped me get here. Yeah. It implies, she didn't say the second part, but it implies it's probably also part of the reason why you're over there. And there were things that you could not help in another sort of spin of fate, you could have been here. And so I think it makes them feel good too. It makes them feel better about sitting on the other side. Like, I loved it too. Anyone who's detesting that, come on, please.
Literally, every single Survivor, I feel like we can go through every Survivor winner and point out where they had luck. And again, I've been a big person in this. I do feel like everyone has luck in some format. Like, even if it's the tiniest bit. I mean, we did, to harken back just to Survivor UK, which we've just recapped because they've just had their finale. Christopher kind of said, like, I didn't have any luck. And I kind of sat there and I was like, Death Sentence, you will always have luck in some degree. So Dee acknowledging that, even though, like, there was part of me that I was like, because she was like, I had so much luck. I was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You had luck. You had luck. You had luck.
Not too much.
She was able to pull it back. But yeah, I liked that she acknowledged, yeah, I did get some luck hit. But again, what I loved that she did is she said, yes, I had luck. Here was what it was. And she gave the points. And she always had an answer. And that's what I appreciated, even in a luck-based question.
Yeah.
it made me that moment especially made me really think, because I think it was more so in a response to the Reba Core 4. And it made me think about Reba and Bello and how different the members of each tribe respectively, how different of an experience those tribes had. But they also were very similar in the sense that neither one of them touched tribal council up until a swap happened.
Yeah.
And we had Bello, who was so eager to start making big moves against each other. And then we had Reba. To some extent, that was the case, but there was that Core 4 alliance in there that knew who they would target first out of that group. And it was interesting to see which tribe, Reba, was able to keep the majority of their players in the game. And then we have Bello. And we talked about that moment mid-season when J Maya was voted out. And I kept thinking, oh, this is Reba's downfall. They were
Ollie.
I know, Ollie. I know.
That's it.
Oh, we have to shout out Caleb also for when he went up to vote and said Jay, which by the way, some people thought he said Jake. He said Jay, like
Jay.
how he did it when J Maya got voted out. But Jay, when that happened, I really thought that this was going to be the downfall of Reba, that Bella was going to recognize this opportunity where they can say, all right, we can start narrowing down Reba. But it almost had the opposite effect, because it gave the false illusion that Reba was able to take shots at each other. And instead, Bello was over here being like, hey, maybe we could use some of the Reba members to take shots at our own. And then we saw it was really cool to watch. Now, the other thing we have to talk about at this final tribal council was Austin's reaction to finding out that Dee had lied to him and had been the one to tell Julie to play her idol and vote for Emily.
That was tough.
I loved it. Oh. It was so nice, because it was Dee's like ace in the hole. It was Dee's kind of got ya moment, because I think it was it Emily that was asking the question, and then Austin responded being like, well, I know that Dee didn't, and it was this, and you saw the jury, so it had been discussed in jury. So I think when Austin was speaking, I think everyone went, here's where he didn't have a hold on the game. And then Dee could go, oh, FYI, I did tell Julie, and the reason she played her idol and voted out Emily was because of me. And I think you kind of saw Austin's revelation of, she has, like, it's that she did Uno reverse him and was like, no more counterpoints.
If I can say, I think that more so than just, oh, there was a secret that was held from Austin, I think that the real sort of ace in the hole for Dee was that, hey, after using the idol, Julie wanted to vote out Austin. And it is only because Dee decided, hey, we're not voting out Austin.
Yeah.
He's my number one. You're my number one. I want Emily. That is the only reason why Austin is still in the game. I think that got her even more points, because it's essentially her just straight up saying, hey, I'm the reason why you're even here right now. Yes, I lied to you, but I also protected you. And on top of that, she has Emily responding to that saying, you know what, Dee? I was thinking about getting you out next, so kudos to you. Gives her that extra bit of like, hey, you made the right choice here too.
Yeah.
You saved Austin. You're the reason why he's here. And then on top of that, Emily is the person that was going to go after you next anyways, and you got her before she can get you. I mean, you can't write it. You cannot write it better.
And it was a great way for Dee to illustrate that she did make a very risky move that could have jeopardized her number one. So if there was any questions about, or if any juror was about to ask Dee, what was that one thing? What was your riskiest move? What was that one thing that you had to do so it wasn't so easy for you all the time, if that was ever in anyone's mind? Dee already answered it. And she, like, I loved how because she didn't need to say anything about Austin being the one to potentially go home, or that Julie was thinking that way. She used that opportunity to say, this was a very risky move that I made because it could have jeopardized my game so badly, but I made it work. And I think that that was really cool. And to your point, Phil, yes, I think it really put some, it gave D some points at the end for more votes. But I'm so surprised that it didn't give D more votes. This was a much closer
But that's
call
what
than
I'm
I really
saying.
thought.
Man, I really believe that this was one of the closer tribals since like straight up like Dom and Wendell. And it's so interesting because I've used them to sort of talk about this game quite a bit. I am like I didn't realize it was so marvelous, but I know a lot of people do not like Ghost Island. I just think that the way that it ended is what makes it a great season, and I think that it, like, the way that any season ends should, like, it's gonna have a huge sort of dictation on where it sits, and I felt like that is one of the most exciting final tribals where he brings it out and says, "Hey, I'm going to read it right here because it's a tie. We need Laurel to vote." This was I mean, I've never thought in the history of Survivor since then that we were anywhere close to that. When he was reading these votes, I thought there was a chance that Jake has to vote for the winner here. I genuinely thought that was going to happen, and it's wild because it's just wild to me because I don't know this for sure. Look, Emily could have been wanting to vote for D the whole time, but like it did by the question she was asking, it felt like she was like lobbying to put her vote on Austin in a weird way. He was like really having D explain further as opposed to Austin explaining further. It feels like she was like, "Hey, I understand why Austin's awesome. You convince me why you're more awesome here."
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I think that she wanted to vote for D. I mean, she gave her those opportunities, but she really was like grilling her at a certain point. And I was like, I had the thought where I said, "Hey, is Emily going to vote for Austin here?" And if she did, that would have been the tie. If one person flipped over, it would have been the tie. So kudos to D. She deserves this. But this was close.
I feel like we have to bring up, Phil, unfortunately, this was the moment that spoiled the episode for you. But when Emily going up to vote and saying, "If you spend any of that $1 million on Austin, I will take it from you." Some lovely last minute financial advice. From
Also,
Emily.
not to mention
from financial analysts.
It is quintessential Emily here, coming, doing a little reprise of her, her OG sort of mode of existence and being, "Hey, I'm going to tell it like it is," and she did, and I loved it. It was totally Emily, and despite that being the moment that did spoil me on social media, I would not have wanted to live without it. That was fun. Do we want to talk reunion?
Great. I think we should. I think there are things to touch on, but first, like, we have to lock it in and make it official. Congratulations, D, for winning Survivor 45. It was so great to see her reaction. I loved it so much. I actually really liked the energy that the live finale with the audience. I liked the energy that they had, but sometimes they could kind of awkward and weird at points. So I like just kind of going straight from the game to the after show. And this was a lot of fun. I think it was funny that Kendra said that she predicted the Austin and D showmance before meeting D, which I was like, what?
Weirdly enough, I kind of believe it. But I'll say this. I think what she means by that, like, and look, I don't know. Look at me trying to justify Kendra here. I feel like she was probably talking about like, "Oh, like I saw them across the water. She was Bello, versus D being on Reba. So before they actually met, she still got to see her. Like, I don't think that she was like, looking in the stars per se. But I don't know. She might trick me. She is an astrologist. But yeah,
it's when she stood up.
Very, very fun. Very, very fun.
It was when Jeff was asking her, she stood up, and I was like, "Yeah, love it."
My gosh.
The fire behind her.
She's a blast. She's a blast and a half. I hope that we see Kendra again, to be honest. But yes. She knew all along.
I agree. I also loved hearing that Austin was an alternate, which was so cool. And then they showed the footage of him finding out that he was going in, like he was already in Fiji. And this is where I actually think, and Austin explained it too, I think that this worked out really well for him because he couldn't overthink the game before going in. He found out like literally, I think a day before or 2 days before they said.
Can I throw out a
Yeah.
random piece of trivia?
Please.
Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, and if everyone knows this, then it's going to be annoying. It's not that cool. But I don't think a lot of people know this. Oh my gosh, not Katora, obviously, not Kendra. Kelly. Kelly was an alternate on a previous season.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Was it 44 or 40?
I feel like it might have been 40.
44.
I think it literally was 44. And they
Yeah,
brought
it
it
was,
back
40,
to
it
45.
was 44 or 43.
Yeah.
Let me go.
So, by the reaction here, I feel like you guys both knew. But I don't know. I always find like the alternate stories to be very, very interesting, and because it's there's a world where these people never get on, and especially when they get on, they do really, really well. I mean, kudos to Austin. It's so cool that we have the footage of him being told.
43.
43. Yeah.
Could you imagine how different of a seat one person changes everything?
And we bring it
And
back.
I love that Kelly made it onto this season in particular.
Yes, but I think that all brings it back to the discussion of luck. Like there is even just who you play with. It's completely different. In this season, Kelly was seen as this huge threat. It's the reason why she got voted off. In another season, they might have not really liked her that much. There's you just never know how it's gonna sort of flux. We talk about it all the time. Imagine if Bruce actually played through 44. Like, it's a completely different, starting drive. I mean, it's just, you never know. You never know. So, kudos to Austin for getting on. That was super fun to find out that he was an alternate. I did not know that before hearing this. And, good on him. He made it very far. He made it as far as he could outside of winning.
Any other moments from the reunion? I want to separate the first look at Survivor 46, which I think should be our last point of discussion. But any other moments between this group of castaways?
I think it was obviously Julie revealing she was a lawyer as well, and then it was kind of just like within the space of like a day, it was like, oh yeah, there's currently 3 lawyers on the cast. By the way, that moment I really did enjoy, because I was like, it was fun, and it was that because it was kind of similar to Carson last year being like, by the way, guys, work for NASA. So I just that moment really stuck out for me because I thought it was funny.
Yeah. I mean, look, there were so many good moments. I liked hearing Dee and Austin sort of talk about their love story in a way. Of course, you knew Jeff was going to push that button there, and it was really cute. It was really cute. I mean, I don't know if you all know something that I don't know. I only watched this episode. I usually watch it 2 or 3 times before we get to talk. I have just finished watching it, a mere few hours ago. So I have not been able to do the research to see if they are still, if they even started dating or what. Do you all have any info on that?
Haven't seen it on Dee's Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're less than 24 hours since the premiere of this finale. So let's, we'll leave some breathing room. But I love that they got to talk about that. I'm sure either way, they definitely are good friends, and it's really great. I think this is a really, really rootable final 3, in all aspects.
I agree. And I also haven't looked. I didn't want to look at the exit interviews right before we filmed, but I will absolutely right after this. I loved Survivor 45. I really did. And now we have Survivor 46 to look forward to. All right. So what are some things they've already filmed it? So, and because this is sort of in the same year, or no, not different year, but like, is it right? Like 45 and 46 were sort of filmed back to back, and then there's like a break, and then it'll be 47 and 48. Is that how it works? Are
you talking about how they film or how they air? It's my understanding that they film 2 seasons at a time, back to back. So season 4, and they usually film around late February, early March. So it's my understanding that 47 and 48 have not even started filming yet. But I'm just guessing here.
Okay, so we can create our wish list. So obviously 46. What did you two think of the first look at 46? And hi, Scotty, I see you in the chat. You're cheating. We're not talking about UK right now, but maybe we'll give you an answer at the end of our discussion of Survivor 45. So Survivor 46, Phil and Ollie, I kind of like that we saw like the casting videos in this.
I was just gonna say
It was pretty cool.
That's my favorite part about what we saw. We never get to see that, and you get to see how different all the cast members are. I mean, you saw, one of them walk in with a suit and tie, like clearly probably the lawyer of the season. He seemed like very, hardo mode, and then you saw others sort of. I mean, I really enjoyed that, seeing them in their real lives before even Survivor. That was super fun.
Yeah, it was, because it was the guy with the briefcase, and then you had the guy shredding, and then the one that had all the foliage all over. It was so different. I feel like this cast, it just feels a lot more diverse obviously in kind of background sense, but also personality. It feels like we've got a really diverse group of personalities that are about to be on next season. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
What I'm really interested to see, because look, there have been things. I mean, I think the one that everyone usually knows is that Michelle Fitzgerald's winning season was actually filmed first in the 2-season cycle, but aired second.
That's right.
And a lot of people talk about the fact that happens on very rare occasions. And I think for that one, it was very obvious where they had a winner in Michelle, who, look, we love Michelle in the fandom, but I feel like there was a more complicated winner edit to sort of charge, because I think a lot of the front runners were people like Aubrey, even Ty. I mean, there were like a lot of bigger Sydney. I mean, a lot of like bigger front runners before we ended up on Michelle. And I think they were trying to figure out the best way to edit that. I want to know if these were actually filmed or are airing in the order that they were filmed, because what I want to know is, did these 45 quits happen before they solidified the cast of season 46? Because if it did inform the season 46 cast, that is going to be the most interesting sort of thing to look at, is how do a bunch of people quitting the previous season of Survivor, how does that inform how they were moving forward in the next? And look, they make last minute calls all the time. There are stories of people being like, hey, a week before I was supposed to go out, they called me and said that I wasn't, or the opposite. I thought that I was dead in the water, and a week before they called me and said, hey, are you free to come out next week? So I'm excited. I'm very curious about that, but I do want to see if that will affect season 46. I see Ollie doing a bit of research, possibly.
I was trying to look. No, they haven't got the filming dates as of yet.
I know when Ollie's doing his research mode, he looks over to the side.
I'm like, research.
But can I ask, how do we think that's going to inform how this next season plays out, considering the aired order is the actual way that they filmed it?
Well, I wonder, because the first look showed one castaway receiving their buff during a confessional, which I was like, this is odd. Like that was really interesting to me. And I wonder if there's almost sort of like an undefined group of tribes at the beginning of next season, and then people like earn their way into it. I mean, that was just speculation. I don't even know if it fully applies, Phil, to what you were saying, but I mean, casting obviously has to have a different approach. And I think you got the ball rolling on things that we don't want to see in 46 and onwards. And the first one that should come to mind are quitters. And you're right. I think there are steps that they need to address. Have you given any thought in terms of things that they might want to consider when they do castaway casting?
I mean, I definitely have given it thought. And I imagine, and that's sort of why I sort of posed the question. I imagine for getting people that would rather die out there than leave the island, which is something that I do think that we see always pointing to himself. There are contestants that really do feel that about this show. They are so serious about their opportunity being on this show that they would never want to squander it. And I really want to know how that displays itself in this upcoming season, or if it does at all. There is a chance where, it doesn't. They go, hey, that was a fluke. I mean, you never know how they're going to sort of contextualize what happened there. But I'm hoping that we see some people out there that are like, hey, I'd rather have them drag me out here dead than quit.
Ollie, I don't know if you've given it any thought. I mean, for me, I think the advertising of the game also needs to change because 41, I started noticing that they started advertising Survivor as like a personal growth opportunity. And I think that gave the wrong impression to people who are interested in something like that. So I think that framing the game around that is very misleading.
And I want to say they clearly have not stopped per se because they had one of their sort of calls to action. And I think it was literally the last episode was Jeff saying, "Do you feel like something's missing in your life?
Right.
Do you feel like you're looking for more excitement?" I mean, once again, whatever it takes to get people to apply, but I feel like a lot of people are already applying. And they should make it be like, hey, this will be one of the hardest things you ever do, but you will feel amazing after, or you will prove more to yourself than you will in the real life. I mean, we'll see. But I'm really excited for season 46. I will say that.
Yeah,
I'm very excited. Hearing that we are continuing 90-minute episodes, thank the Lord. I mean, this is going to be a really exciting season to watch. I think a lot of people are excited.
I agree. You know what? I also am hoping it gets edited because I don't think it was very successful in 45. But I'm not sure how I feel about castaways losing their votes because of losing challenges. I think it was a good attempt. I can understand where they were going with it, but I don't think it made for the best television as they had hoped for. And they really have to decide if voting is a right or a privilege in the game. And I think that it started getting a little bit muddled.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I understand what they were trying to do. I think there's still the teeniest, tiniest bit of fine tuning that needs to work there. Because I'm under the impression that you should always have your vote. The beware things I do get. The beware ones, I'm fine with. It is that one in the challenge. I think unless it kind of, instead of losing vote, I've been thinking about this actually a bit, and I'm thinking instead of losing your vote, gaining a vote or whatnot, so it's like a public extra vote. It's just those little things. Just see what they can think of, because I do feel like even in especially the late stages of the game, people need their votes at that point, and I feel like it is kind of that. At the last minute, the one thing everyone should at least account on is having their vote. Beginning of merge, I'd be more okay with it. But kind of towards the end game, when it's like there's 7 people left, I'm like, that's when the kind of business end is. And if you're taking away their vote, I was always a bit on it.
No, look, I'm not huge on it. I don't want to pose that I am big on it at all. I'm very much not. However, I do think it's interesting. The most interesting part about it is, like, there is always going to be a reason why you want to win. You want immunity. You want reward. You want all these things. But what is your reason for, like, not getting last or not wanting to be the final person? And I think once again, I'm just pontificating here. I would imagine that's what they're going for, is give a reason to not be last. Give a reason to not lose versus just giving a reason to win.
Yeah.
And do I think that taking away a vote should be the go-to way for that? No, not necessarily. But I do want to see sort of how they grow that, or frankly shrink that in the next season. Matthew, you look like you are ready for it to end.
No, because I liked what you were saying. I did like what you were saying, Phil, but it got me wondering, like, is losing immunity and losing reward not enough of a reason to give it your all? Like, do they really need the reason to not come in last? But I wonder if it's supposed to be a way to get people not to throw challenges.
I think that's that's the thing. I mean, back in the day, sure, losing immunity is one thing. I agree with you there. I think losing reward is not the biggest deal right now in Survivor. And I think that they want that to be a bigger deal. Where it's okay, you don't just lose reward, you lose your right to vote. Because I do think that we were in a sort of vibe where it was like, hey, if I don't get a reward, hey, I get rice back at home, it's fine. No Flint, I'll live. No vote. Oh my God. I think it does sort of light a fire under some tushies. But we'll have to see. I'm curious to see what Survivor's going to do. Season 46 is coming up, and I think that we're Ollie, please.
No, I was going to say, just last thing. if there is something they want to get rid of and change, Sanctuary. That's all I have to say.
I want about the Sanctuary.
I want less Sanctuary, and I do think that Jeff is in that same camp. He's got to get tired of saying it, and I think honestly he wanted it to be a thing, like very much like his, when your fire's out, so are you. These sort of like isms of Survivor. And I think, they say it themselves now. The contestants will be like, oh, like, you're going to the Sanctuary where people say good things happen. Like, it's a call and response. But it's also boring. It's also boring for the viewers. And so I think that, they put more stock in keeping happy viewers than having some fun rhythmic thing that everyone knows. I mean, they have enough of those. They have enough isms. They don't need another one. I think that what they need is they don't need anything, but I think it would be nice to have them dial that back and have more helicopter trips and go to a local school and play with the kids. Like that used to be, honestly, that was so fun back in the day to see them go to a local school, drop off donations. It's also a cool, philanthropic angle of Survivor that we don't see anymore. Sort of diving into the real culture. Let's get more of that.
And can I say the very least that they could do is use some television magic and at least change up the look of the Sanctuary to really play into what the reward is. That is the least that I would like for them to do. If it's going to stick around, let it morph into something so spectacular each time a reward is presented on the show. I would love that. Phil, Ollie, we've done so much this season. I'm so happy that I got to go on this journey with the two of you. We sparked and snuffed outfits. We put all of the castaways into a RuPaul's Drag Race simulator and saw if that could predict the season. It really didn't, but I had so much fun reviewing the episodes with the two of you. Before we say goodbye to Survivor 45, I think it'll be great to end on a high note. And I just want to quickly go down the line. What was your favorite moment of Survivor 45? And Ollie, we started with me last time, so we're starting with you this time.
I was trying not to say a bad word. What was my favorite moment?
I have mine.
Phil, go ahead. I think we'll go first.
Look, see, much like I will take the heat off of you, Ollie. I got your back here. As long as I have your vote, if you're on the jury. Now, look, my favorite moment of all of Survivor 45 has to be Caleb's idol play. Or Shot in the Dark.
Shot in the Dark
play. We saw the first hit on Shot in the Dark, and I think that it happened to the best person in Caleb, someone who everyone honestly adored so much that they wanted to vote him off. It's not like it was someone who got all the votes, but like also didn't have the admiration of the people to his right and left. Like, I think it honestly would have been a little crappier if it was someone like Bruce, who out there, it seems like they all sort of have made up with Bruce, but certainly out there, they were not the biggest fans of him. And I think if he had all the votes piled on him, he uses it. We would have seen more like distraught looks, whatever. But it was cool that like everyone got to celebrate it. It's like, hey, we all did vote for you, but that was freaking cool, Caleb. And like, what a moment! I think that has to be my favorite moment.
Do I still have to go?
I have mine, Ollie. If you really want to think about it some more.
Yeah, I'm toying because I'm toying whether. Yeah, I'm toying.
Well, maybe mine will influence yours. My favorite moment of Survivor 45 was Sabaya's Tribal Council barbecue. I loved it so much, and that was the first hint that I had that made me really know that this was going to be a very, very special season. I loved that not only did we get it was amazing that Lulu did not have fire and Sabaya had to bring it and use the fire at Tribal Council to try to get the idol out of the wax. Then only for Sabaya to discover what the audience already knew from the other tribe already finding their idol, that Sabaya would have to sacrifice her vote or use it there. for Sabaya to make that decision. And then ultimately, unfortunately, it did lead to Sabaya's blindside, but it was such entertainment. I loved it. And I think it really set the tone moving forward.
I thought you were going to say your favorite moment of Survivor 45 was Sabaya. Why
not?
That would
me too.
Why not?
That could work.
I was like, oh, Sabaya. Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts too. No, the barbecue is fantastic. I think that's a really, really, really good choice there. Ali,
that would be where I sit here now and be like, what's your favorite moment? Just Jay Meyer in general. No, no. It was because I was toying between 3. So my can I say my 2 honorable mentions at least?
Ollie, we have been on here for an hour and 25 minutes.
Okay then. So my main one is the evolution of Emily. Yeah. And I say that as a whole because I loved seeing kind of Emily come in as this very strong woman. She was already a strong woman. She was very opinionated. And then we kind of saw her growth as a human and as a person. And it's like, you can still have this side, but here is these whole other layers you can do. And we saw her leave still strong, but we saw her leave a well-rounded person and a strong player. So that's what I'll take away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great choice, Ollie. Right up there in my mind as well. I mean, I really, before we close out, just want to thank our viewers who tune into our episodes. It's been amazing to see how many views our videos have been getting. Thank you just so much for tuning in, whether you've been joining and participating in our live chats, which we love, by the way, or if you've been watching the videos after we've recorded live and you're leaving comments on those. I mean, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to Survivor 46, where hopefully we'll have the same coverage opportunities that we did for Survivor 45. Let us know in the comment section, what are you most looking forward to in Survivor 46? And I can't wait to talk about it with all of you in the future.